Remember to subscribe and hit the notification button to keep up to date with our latest videos.
Hello world! Today I am bringing you a BMW Z4 M Coupe, or as us Canadians would call it, the Z4 M Coupe. It's a pretty good looking car. Honestly, this is one of those M cars that kind of goes unnoticed, mainly because there aren't a lot of them, or you don't really see them a lot. But Gary and the guys over at Garage 54 have been kind enough to give us the keys for the entire day, which is quite the privilege. And it means that, you know, I just get a little bit more seat time and get that little extra insight into how this car drives and performs, not only in the corners, but in the street on the way up to the canyons. So we get a full experience of the Z4 M Coupe today, which is very exciting. Quick rundown for you guys. This is a 2007 model. They made this car for a total of 2 years. It's got the S54 3.2 liter inline 6 naturally aspirated engine from the E46 M3. It is one of the last naturally aspirated engines from BMW, and the S54 is kind of the most iconic and most popular of those NA inlines from the M division. So why am I driving this car? Well, if you haven't already seen our episode on Gary's insane 800 wheel horsepower Z3 M Coupe, the clown shoe, you should definitely watch that. But this is just kind of a comparison, because this is that same idea and that same kind of formula, but taken with the Z4. You know, taking the Z4 platform and then kind of just doing the same thing to it. Hatchback, really good lines, great looking car, I think. Aside from the front end, just head on, doesn't really do anything for me, but the side profile and the rear 3/4 and the back end of this car, I think, is awesome. It's a great looking car. It's aged brilliantly. It hasn't aged quite as well as the E46 M3. I'm pretty sure that car is just timeless, absolutely timeless. But if you're looking for the last of the high revving, totally NA inline 6 engines from BMW, this is definitely a good option. Mainly because most people want or would rather have an E46 over this car, even though this is a little bit newer. So this is literally just dropped in the engine from the E46 M3, so it's got about 333 horsepower, which is plenty. Now, this car weighs a little bit more, I feel like, than you would like out of a dedicated sports car. Even though it is a 2-door and 2-seater car, there are no back seats here, it's not a dedicated sports car, I feel like. If you've driven any kind of BMW or M car that they've come out with in the last, 15 or 20 years, then you pretty much know how this car feels in terms of its input, shifter feel, steering feel, and the clutch is very easy. Brilliant daily driver, aside from a few things, and I'm gonna point out those things to you guys right now. Wow. The first thing is the visibility. It's pretty god-awful. Obviously, out the front of the car is fine. That's never really an issue. The A-pillars are fine. But looking behind you, it's like a little slit. Honestly, the 720S has about as much visibility as this car. When you go to shoulder check, the quarter panel over there, like it's a pretty awful blind spot. So visibility is definitely a downside of this car. That being said, I have a solution for your visibility issue, and that is just drive faster, because then you only have to pay attention to things that are in front of you and not behind you. Woo! 7,500 RPM red line, and yes, you need to use all of that because that 330 horsepower is all at the top end. That's part of the charm of this car, or pretty much, honestly, all of the charm of this car is A, the way it looks, and B, is the power band. Especially if you're an M guy. I mean, that's pretty much what any die-hard M guy goes after, and which is why we got a lot of hate comments from last year's turbocharged E46 M3 review. You really want to keep it up, kind of 5,000 or 6,000 RPM if you want to have any sort of fun. That being said, when you hit that M Sport button, the throttle response tightens up to a point where kind of around 2,000 to 3,000 RPM, it gives the illusion that you have a lot more torque than you actually have. Because any little bit of throttle input will kind of, will give you that sensation like, oh, okay, now we're moving, right? Not saying the car doesn't have adequate torque, it's definitely fast enough, but it's borderline a momentum car depending on how big a road you're on, basically. 4,000 RPM. So yeah, throttle response is definitely tightened up from the E46 M3. Right off the get-go, honestly, it's almost too sensitive. Because if you're trying to make a quick movement or you really want to power out of a corner, you end up like smacking it too hard. Like even if you're just tapping it, it's like kind of throws you back instantly. Which I guess is a good thing, but I mean, it's quick. It's plenty fast. It's plenty fast. Does this need a turbo? Absolutely not. Wow. Especially on like long sweepers like this. It's fun. I mean, the steering is kind of what you would expect out of like an E46 M3. It feels very similar, very small in here though. Now I'm a smaller guy, so it's not really a big deal, but if you were taller, 6 feet plus, 6 foot plus, I could see this being a real issue driving this car and staying comfortable for more than, an hour or two. So a couple aftermarket modifications on this car. It is on lowering springs. It is on aftermarket wheels. It's got very sticky tires all the way around. And as well, it's got aftermarket mufflers. And it is a 6-speed as well, so you actually get half decent fuel economy. There we go. 4th gear at like 5,000 RPM. You top out 4th gear, you are going way too fast, sir. Woo! Oh man. It's not what I would call comfortable, although the seat is very nice. And I mean, the car is over 10 years old now, and the interior has held up fairly well. There are a couple rattles here. The whole dash is like this super cheap plastic here, which kind of reflects the resale value of these cars in the used market right now. they're still of a very high quality standard, but there are definitely a couple of rattles that you would expect from, you know, a C5 or C6 Corvette, but not necessarily an M car that's only 10 years old. So that is something to be wary of if you are actually looking to purchase one of these vehicles. Another thing about this car is, like, it's made for a very specific group of people. You gotta be looking specifically for this car. I feel like no one's really coming across this car on a dealer lot and being like, oh yeah, that's the one for me. You know, none of these other new cars do it for me. This is the one I want. I don't think that's really happening. Now, I could be wrong about that, but I think that more comes down to the shape of it. It's a very unique shape, and it takes a very, you know, unique character of person, I feel like, to drive a car like this. Wow, turning radius is unbelievable. That is so crazy. $7,500 RPM. You gotta use all the revs in this car. There's no, like, okay, it's a mid-range car in the power band and you can get away with shifting at like 2,000 RPM before a red line. You can't. You're absolutely not driving this car to the full potential if you're not shifting at 7,500 RPM. Thank you again, Gary, and the guys over at Garage 54 for allowing me to drive your Z4 M Coupe. It's so much fun. I would have never gone out of my way to go and find one of these to drive and do a review for you guys on. I'm just gonna be honest with you. Now, the clown shoe, that's a different story, but this car is a little bit, it's definitely not gonna be a cult classic. It's not gonna go up in value. I mean, they made quite a few of them, so that's why I say that, not that it's not a unique car and one that shouldn't, you know, hold it. I think it'll hold its value. I just don't think it's gonna go up in value like the clown shoes are, but modern enough interior in here. The navigation and the Bluetooth and the radio controls and everything, it sucks. It absolutely sucks. It's a pretty primitive system. It's got like blocky pixels and stuff. It's just not the greatest. It looks fine, and then all the actual buttons here for the climate control, those are great. That's all great because it's all very analog and kind of classic M. Everything, you know, works. It's got cruise control, it's got hands-free, it's got heated seats, it's got electric seats, electric windows. It's an M car. At the end of the day, this is an M car, despite it not being an M2 or an M3 or an M5. I'm still getting like enough of the M experience, and it all comes down to it having the S54 up front. If it didn't have the S54 and they just badged it M and like put the sport button in there and stuff, it just wouldn't do it. But it's plenty quick. It's as quick as you need it to be. And the torque is very consistent. There's nothing that's gonna throw you off guard in this car. There's nothing that's gonna come swinging that you're not expecting, right? And here we are cruising at 65 miles an hour, turning 2,500 RPM. So it is what it is. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you want to check out our new batch of engine code key tag designs, they're on our website. We just doubled the designs. We've got an S54 B32 coming. So definitely check that out. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit me up on Instagram at Roads Untraveled. That is by far the best way to keep up with what we're doing on a daily basis and kind of see some behind the scenes stuff there. And I can interact with you guys on there as well. So thanks guys for watching. We'll see you soon.